What's up, guys? It's Aystogon, and today we are going to be playing some mono red aggro. We've got a nice matchup here, and that we've got a nice hand, which sometimes I've seen just doesn't happen. And we're playing against Rakdos. I believe it's Rakdos. It might be Rakdos or maybe just mono black. And so today we've got actually a nice game with Crystalline Giant, and exactly why I love playing this card so much. While it's probably not best to use in the most optimized or tuned mono red deck, you can see in this game that it tends to be pretty good after a while. And I learned to sort of think about it in a different way. Now, one of the more popular cards being played now is the colorless Stonecoil Serpent, which has reach, trample, and it comes in as a XX, where X is the amount of mana used to cast it. And so in the end, it becomes a, like, if you're playing on turn 3, it's a 3 mana, 3/3/3 should trample. Now that seems to be played a lot. It also has protection for multicolored, which is also huge. And so if you think of it that way, we sort of have something similar in Crystalline Giant. It's a 3/3 that comes in, and if you're playing an aggro deck, you probably want to play it before your combat phase, which kind of sucks. But it comes in with a few things, and it grows as it gets bigger, which is the more interesting part. Right here you see it came in with a 1/1 counter, but sometimes it'll come in with hexproof, it'll come in with first strike, vigilance, lifelink, and these things are huge, especially dependent on the matchup. So if you're playing against like an Ugin deck, and this comes in, you have something that can't die to Ugin because Ugin gets rid of non-land permanents, colored permanents. I forget exactly. But if he gets rid of colored permanents, I think it's non-land permanents with CMC. It's usually too late. It's usually too late by then. But if you do get it in before then, it's really good against aggro because it's a 3/3 body. We all know aggro has problems with anything that's like 2 CMC or higher because we're only playing shocks in there. We're playing Stonecoil Stomp for our super awesome adventure red creature I forgot the name of, and we're playing shocks, so we're not getting past 3/3. This thing gives vigilance and lifelink at times, so there'll be times where they just can't get past it and you're going in for beats, and if they just don't block, you're just going to get in more health, more and more health. There's times where Crystalline Giant will have reach, so when you're playing against Azorius Flyers or Mono White Weenies that has a few flyers in there like Killer's Hawk, this thing just comes out ahead. Now, in this, you'll see that one of the huge things that this came out with was actually the trample, because one of the most popular things about the Rakdos Sack Cat engine is that they'll block your creature and then they'll sack it, and that kind of sucks. And so this works as a nice tech against that sort of technique. When they go to sack the cat, you're like, oh, you can't get the damage in because I blocked and then I sacrificed the cat. So not only did they negate the damage, they're also doing damage to you. But because we got the trample counter on our Crystalline Giant, we were able to get in more damage. And so despite thinking they can block it, they actually have to lose some creatures to trade off with our giant in order to actually progress their plan. And it kind of sucks for them because they had no cards in hand at this state. And it gets worse and worse as our Crystalline Giant becomes better and better. Because it gets things like Death Touch and First Strike, that means in the end it'll end up becoming strong to kill up, trade up against things like things that don't have First Strike. So I think Questing Beast doesn't have First Strike. I could be mistaken, but it'll trade up with larger creatures. Then becomes a 3 mana kill spell at times. That's only in cases where you get this out early enough and you're able to actually use it in that way. There are times when you get it out late enough. And it just sucks. But that's why we play it in a more aggressive deck in order to sort of diversify our threats. And that's also a problem I've had in Mono Red, in that we couldn't have too much diversity in our threats. So I tried some more Chandra, but it doesn't really work unless you're playing against Rakdos or you're playing as Rakdos, because then it's just 2 damage for 3 mana, and I don't think we want that. I don't think that's a good rate to think of it. We don't play too many instances in sorceries, so then it becomes a 3 mana pinger, and we don't really care about our health because we're aggro as well. So this sort of filled that role. It was a way to sort of stop people from playing things like I forgot the Aether Gust variant for dealing with red things, but it was to protect against that sort of stuff, the hate against that stuff. It's also big enough where it can't be like shocked and stuff like we were talking about earlier. So this is why I've been playing Crystalline Giant. Also, because I'm very, very, very much in love with red. This sort of fits that more like chaotic slash varying style that I enjoy, which is nothing is ever 100%. There's too much variety in this card, which is probably why it's not played too much, right? Because you don't want something that may or may not protect itself. You don't want something that may or may not be helpful. I think this is the style you want to put it in, something in a more aggro deck, a deck that doesn't necessarily have the tools that it needs to become a little higher in the tiers. So this is why I'm playing Crystalline Giant, and I think it worked out pretty well in this situation. You can see that like he's having trouble like just dealing with it. And now, mind you, his creatures are generally bigger than mine, which is why I'm not smacking face for all of them. And he does only have one cat, which is a problem because he really needs to be able to get rid of my creatures because they're resilient. For one, we've got a Grim Initiate, which sticks. It just sticks. And we have a Crystalline Giant who just keeps on getting buffs. It's also interesting to think about this because we're in a situation where like we're in a stalled board state, but also I've got this huge, massive 3-mana Death Touch, Lifelink, Trample, Flying, and it can get more stuff that just keeps on swinging in, and then you just can't block it. And it's great. It feels good too, which is why I think you should play it. However, like the best thing for this, like if you don't have this card, I know it really did suck because it is a rare card, and so I just fill my rares for it. I think it's worth it because it's the fun factor of it, like never knowing what you're gonna get. If you don't have this card, I guess I'm not sure what you'd fit in for it besides the basic red cards for it. So in place of this, you'd put things like Annex in here. However, I am running 2 Annexes, but I'm just running a split between them. So right now I have, I think, 2 Annexes in this deck and 3 Crystalline Giants. It hasn't been too much of a problem because usually when you play Annex, you can't play another Annex, which I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? But I will say that it does kind of suck because if you do rely on your Annex to get in that damage, Crystalline Giant won't help you pump him. And I've noticed like Annex does get like chump blocked a lot, and so it doesn't seem like too much of a problem. Because like Crystalline Giant can get Flample, and so like it seems pretty decent in that state. So I'm just saying, like Crystalline Giant is a pretty versatile card, and I think you'll enjoy it if you like playing a lot of random / aggro decks. You'll see that it does pay for itself at times, and it can really come in clutch at times. But maybe I'll get into more clips for this later to show you guys how awesome Crystalline Giant is. But until then, I'll just be playing with my Robber the Rich decks because those are fun. And I think isn't Robber like rotating soon? I don't remember, which kind of sucks, but he's a very fun card. But yeah, this is basically it for this video. Mono Red Aggro has been actually doing pretty decent lately. I was looking at the most recent decks, and coming to best of 1, which is I guess to be expected because no one's really preparing for aggro, because they're preparing for aggro, you're not playing for the mirror, and the mirror is like I think almost Simic. I mean, best of 3 is like full Simic, but the mirror I forget what it is. I'll show it on the screen, but it's interesting to see how it's being played out right now because Simic is doing good in best of 3, but on the flip end, we have Mono Red Aggro just sweeping because no one's really like if you're opting to play against aggro, you're gonna lose to like other things. So, anyways, that was pretty interesting. Think about. And this was actually this game was, I don't know how to say about this game, but I was really teasing out the opponent in this game. I was really going ham, and you can see like this is why Simic doesn't do too well in the best of 1 because they're just gonna go under Ugin. As you can see here, like after like ramming in with so much damage and having like a Torbrand on board, which definitely helped. Like they play the Ugin, and I'm like, okay, like I might lose, I may or may not lose, and I was really banking on my Crystalline Giant having hexproof, and that wasn't the case. Like it didn't get hexproof, which really sucked. Because in that case, if it got hexproof, he couldn't have killed it because Simic doesn't have any board wipes. And he can counter because he played Ugin. But I was lucky enough to get a shock, and I destroyed him that way. So that was cool. That was super clutch. Like if he didn't have the shock, I was hoping he didn't have any creatures because like he would have played more creatures, right? So I was hoping to get in like a Robber the Rich or a Stomp. or a shock, but I tend to just pick it out with a shock, and so I just rammed shock in face. So yeah, that'll be it for the game today. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and that is exactly how you play Crystalline Giant. I hope you guys enjoyed.